Good evening, Richmond, and welcome to the Comcast Verizon Community Access Hour. I'm Craig Johnson, and I want to thank you all. I want to also thank the engineers. We have Akil and okay, we want to thank these gentlemen. They are our engineers for the evening. And we want to thank you out there and the folks at Comcast that make this broadcast possible. And this is our fourth week. We've been discussing the fact of American-style communism, and I've posed a question. Are we already living in American-style communism? And of course, my answer is yes, and we've been breaking that down for you for the past 3 weeks. And we have a total of 6 weeks to do this, and this is week 4, and we're going to get back on the economic angle of it this week. And helping me in analyzing the economics of it, I'm going to have a guest, Mr. Dave Brett, who was my guest today earlier on WLEE 990. I have a program there, The Really Real Deal. And many of you, by the way, would know me by my radio name, Brother Craig, the Hatchet Man. But we thank you for joining us this evening. And I'm looking forward to Dave calling in again. And he'll be calling in at about 10 or 15 after the hour. And we'll have him on, hopefully, depending on his schedule. I hope to have him on for about 30 minutes. And then towards the end of the program, we'll put the phone number up and we'll take your calls, and you'll be able to participate in this evening's program. But what we've been doing is trying to give people a sense of really the true meaning of words, looking at communism from a historical standpoint. Of course, people think back to the Bolshevik takeover of Russia, the murdering of the czars, and taking their whole family out in the snow in 1917 and just killing everyone, and then just decimating that nation with gulags, murders, forced labor, mass starvation, tanks rolling through the streets. The current crisis in the Ukraine, any student of history will know that they starved 10 million Ukrainians, and Ukraine is the largest country in Europe, and it has the most fertile soil. It is literally the breadbasket of Europe, and these people had peasant farms that were small individually, but collectively were able to feed Europe. And so the Soviets engulfed them into the Soviet Union, wanted to collectivize their farms and just starve them to death. And so people think of these type of horrific things that I think something like 60 million people that were killed. I mean, it dwarfs the amount that Hitler even killed. And so when you say communism, that harkens into people's minds, and you leave yourself susceptible to what the opposition would say would be a false comparison. And so politicians tend to shy away from that. But I don't shy away from that, folks, because again, this is the title of this year's program is Are We Living in American-Style Communism? Not Are We Living in Soviet-Style Communism? And so, and it all has to do with freedom and what is the idea in this clash of ideas that we're living under. We are living in an era where one or the other is going to dominate. And this nation gets into these types of fights about every 4 generations, where you have just two sides that will not budge. They clash. This nation was born in such an era, and these eras are called crisis eras. And I really do mean crisis. I don't mean a phony manufactured crisis, which is one of the communist tools they use to create division and create a sense of emergency, to create a sense that the government has to come in because they always want to create a pretext so that they can pretend that they're doing you a favor. I mean a true crisis. And a crisis is actually a medical term. A crisis happens when the patient is right at the brink of death. And the moment of crisis is when there is not a certainty as to whether the patient is going to live or die. And so some patients reach crisis and they die. Some patients reach crisis and they live. That's a crisis. A crisis is a serious thing, not something that is made up because members of the media want ratings or politicians want votes or challengers want to unseat incumbents or a party wants to kick another party out. That's not a crisis. Those type crises are very easily manufactured. But crises take generations to come to a head, and then they subside, and then 4 generations later, they come back to a head again. And as a matter of fact, several years ago, this is my 4th year doing this program, and I think maybe my first year we did a program called America's Next Great Crisis, and we went through the crisis eras throughout American history, how each generation played a role in each crisis, and we broke it down into all the aspects of that crisis: a moral crisis, financial crisis, military crisis, and the world-changing nature of the resolution. And so the resolution to these crisis eras always brings tremendous change. And remember now, the Obama administration, well, actually, it was Barack Obama himself, not any member of his administration, promised fundamental transformation, that's Soviet language, that's Soviet speak. That is out of the communist playbook. And so this is what they want. And so what we hear now in an environment where this is the 4th crisis era in the history of America. And so we have everyone's concerned, and people are afraid to actually identify what the true problem is. People don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. The left, which I call communist, socialist, fascist, statist, crony capitalists, you can call them all kinds of things. Some people call them liberals. They are not liberal. I'm liberal, okay? Classic liberal. These people are not liberal. They do not believe in liberty. They are not open-minded. That's a classic liberal. A classic liberal says, I may disagree with my friend, the hatchet man, or I may disagree with Mr. Dave Bratt, who's running to be congressman to unseat Eric Cantor, or I may disagree with Congressman Cantor. A classic liberal will say, but I would give my life to defend his right to speak. And these current people that have you thinking that they are liberal, that's not their agenda. Their agenda is to shut down all opposition, Soviet style, total takeover. And so what they have a total lockdown on all the cultural institutions, and they have had a total lockdown on these cultural institutions for decades. And people in the coalition on the right, the center-right coalition, which is made up of conservatives, Christians, and libertarians, that coalition is just recently getting into the game. And so our guest that is going to be calling in is a member of that coalition, a strong advocate, a professor at Randolph-Macon University, a trained economist, and has a divinity degree. And so this is a gentleman that understands these dynamics and understands what a crisis is, understands what a moral crisis is in a nation, in a family, in an individual. Understands what an economic crisis is in a nation, in a family, in an individual. Understands these things and is unafraid to articulate them. And so this is the key thing that has been missing in this is really an unfair fight. We have a very, very focused and very, very aggressive apparatus that's destroying this nation bit by bit. And the style of the communistic takeover, and we can quibble over the terminology. Some people may take exception to the word communism, but For many of you who know me and have followed me for the years that I've been on the air, I have a blog talk radio program. There's 200 or 300 interviews in the archive. This is our fourth year doing this. We have radio on WLEE. I've been on WCLM, WVNZ. We go out and we take this on the road whenever we get invitations to speak. I love doing it. We'll come to any, as a matter of fact, anyone out there that would like to have me come out and speak to your group, you can email Kimberly at agencyforthearts.com, all spelled out, Kimberly at agencyforthearts.com, and she will get my schedule and your schedule synced up. And so, back to this dynamic of fundamental transformation, communism, socialism, whatever type of ism you want to call it, but what they all have in common. And when we get Dave on the line, we're going to talk about terminology and definitions and how the left takes control of the language. They redefine the meaning of words. They reinterpret history. They just outright lie about history. They omit things that are historical. They take things out of context. They intimidate. And we have an opposition that's and one of the things about the opposition, I love the members of the opposition. I love my friends in the right-wing Christian conservative coalition, even the middle of the roaders. I love these people. But one of the things as God-fearing Christians, there's this teaching of turning the other cheek, love thy brother as thou would love thyself, turn the other cheek to your enemy, being polite, being and trying to think well of the opposition. And that in a warfare context, that's an equation that does not work. It just simply does not work, because the opposition is going to always lie about us. Is that my guest on the line? And there's this Mr. Dave Brett.
Hey, Craig, how you doing?
I'm absolutely fantastic. We are live on the air, and I want to thank you again. We had a fantastic conversation on WLEE today, Dave, and I just want to thank you. I know there's a lot of demands on your time, and I appreciate you coming on.
It's a pleasure to be on. I enjoyed the conversation a lot this afternoon. It was great.
Okay. And see, I'm setting it up for the people today, and as I promised them, Dave, first of all, Dave, I've given them a little bit of your background. If you could just give a little more of your background, just to flesh out for the audience who you are, what your passion is, and how the Dave Brett we're getting to know, how did this guy come to be?
Yeah, good. Well, that's a great question. Yeah, grew up in the Midwest. I went to a small liberal arts college, Hope College, with a religious affiliation. Went to work for Arthur Andersen in Detroit and Chicago for a couple years in information consulting. Felt the call to Princeton Theological Seminary, so went to seminary for 3 years. Was going to either work in the church or teach kids philosophy and theology and ethics. And while I was there, I went on a political semester to Washington, D.C., and found my passion in life, and that's putting economics and ethics together. So I went and did my PhD in economics. Been teaching at Randolph-Macon for 18 years, linking economics and ethics together. Been on the governor's economic boards over the years, on the Commonwealth Board of Accountancy, and some other policy stuff like that. So basically just trying to do the right thing, putting economics together with our first principles we believe in.
You know, that's the missing ingredient right there. Putting ethics and economics together. And also, it seems to me, Dave, you have an ability to articulate this, which is where quite often members of the conservative Christian libertarian coalition fall a little bit short of those who would transform this country. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, it's a challenge because, I mean, I was blessed to have a lot of education. God put me on a good path, but I wish I could articulate things as well as you, and I'd really be set.
Well, you're not doing too bad. And actually, you'd be a great improvement. And, Congressman Cantor's not an all bad guy now. I don't know him personally. I've met him I can't count how many different occasions I've met him, been in his presence, been at meetings. As a matter of fact, had lunch with him about 3 weeks ago up in Washington, up at the up at the Library of Congress, and school choice. I'm the school choice advocate for the Virginia Christian Alliance, and so in that capacity went there, and he has a good stance on that. But, the knock on him is the same as it is on so many conservatives, Dave, is that we don't have people that can get down in the trenches with the common man and woman and talk tabletop issues and address those family to family, individual to individual, small business people. There seems to be a catering to big business, and maybe Eric had that knack in his first few terms, but it just seems that there's a case in point, immigration. Even I was talking to a friend, a Hispanic friend, after the radio show today, and even Hispanics, Dave, that are established, that are citizens, that are doing well, even they get it that when you increase the number of low-skilled people, that their rates go down. And the guy was telling me that 6, 7, 8 years ago, if he didn't like his job situation, he could tell his employer, take a hike because there's a job around the corner that would pay him more. And now, if you don't like what's happening, and this is a Hispanic telling me this now, the employer would tell him, well, you can take a hike because there's 20 guys that want your job.
Yeah.
So how do you address that to people and compare yourself to the establishment, and not to just pick on Eric Cantor, but the establishment Republicans, and there's plenty of them. Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, Charlie Crist. There's plenty of them that push this, that call themselves Republicans.
Yeah, well, they're not, because Republicans believe in our first principles, and the basic tenet is we believe that everyone is created in God's image and we're all equal. No one gets special treatment, right? So
Dr. King's vision.
I give my stump speech and I go through the issues. I mean, it's amazing. Obamacare
Obama scam, Dave, because Obama don't care.
3 groups get exempted out of Obamacare. There's special groups, right? If you're congressional or congressional staff, you get exempted.
Yes.
If you're big business, you get exempted.
Yes.
If you're a union, you get exempted.
Yes.
If you're the normal guy,
you don't get exempted.
Right? And so that's Obamacare, and then amnesty. Big business wants it. It hurts the small guy. It couldn't be more clear. And then so big business gets the low, cheap wages. And who's going to pick up the tax tab for any unanticipated costs that come our way?
Right,
we are.
Right. And see, in another group...
You hit it on the head. At once, Eric, maybe I hope he could communicate with the folks, but now he needs crib notes and teleprompters, and he cannot just speak from anymore and come down and talk to the people.
Well, that's what I think a lot of people like about you, Dave. Now, that's what I like about you. Let me just speak personally, that you seem to have this ability, this Reagan-like ability to speak without notes. And it's no accident now that the establishment grand old party did not like Ronald Reagan, did not want Ronald Reagan. They opposed Ronald Reagan in 76, and Reagan lost and Ford won. But then Ford went on to lose against Carter. And there are recorded conversations between Nixon and Kissinger disparaging Ronald Reagan. And so, here we are, fellow Gen Xers, you and I, and there's a host of Gen Xers. You have Ted Cruz, you have just any number of them across the country. And the establishment Republicans are still saying to the average voter that these and you're a guy, a Christian, a conservative, well-educated, well-bred, well-intentioned, good track record, and they're making these wild accusations about you and any other conservative or Tea Partier that you're racist, you're xenophobic, you're homophobic, you hate women, you hate this group, that group. How do you you have a double attack to make? You have to kind of carefully attack the grand old party, and then hopefully you will zealously attack the Democrat brand. So I'm going to put it in your hands.
I'm in good position because I've been in academia, actually, and so everybody knows I love everybody, right? I got kids from all over the world in my classes. I got a good track record going. The only person that's criticized me is Eric Cantor, my own party. Right. So he's given these misleading attacks, and ironically, what did they say about Ronald Reagan? They called him voodoo economics for espousing free market principles, right?
Yes.
Eric Cantor's doing the same thing to me. He's saying, we can't trust Dave Bratt's economic principles, and I believe in the free market system.
Now talk to the little guy.
They want to control.
Talk to the little guy about who maybe went to a government school and doesn't really understand economic principles, and that what they tell them is that free enterprise is a code word, and that is really capitalism and it's for the rich, and the little guy's not going to get a whole lot. The line that the unions tell in order to create this division of labor versus management and ownership. Explain to the audience, Dave, you're a trained economist. Explain to them how free enterprise is actually great for bringing the lower quintiles up. But for the top quintile, it represents an opportunity for competition and to perhaps unseat them.
Well, it's easy to explain. We went over it a little bit this afternoon, but look at China right now. When I started teaching economic development 20 years ago, the Chinese made $500 a person per year. Barely enough to live on, right? Subsistence food. What happened? Now, they went toward capitalism and free markets, not crony capitalism, right? Not government control. They're getting rid of government. And now their people, instead of living on $500 a year, are living on $7,000 a year. That's the poor. They're finally feeding their poor, 1.2 billion people in China, due to free markets. And so anyone that says the Republican Party is not the compassionate party, they got it all wrong. And so the problem is not capitalism, it's crony capitalism, where Eric Cantor is giving special tax credits and tax deductions and special tax breaks to all the big boys and all his friends that have lawyers on K Street. And the little guy doesn't get it. That is not free markets. That's the opposite. That's central planning, and that's top-down economics. Free market is the opposite. It starts with a small guy down at the bottom and lets them do what they want.
And it gives them jobs and an opportunity to get off of government subsistence.
Right, exactly. Be independent and live up to God's dignity.
Now, explain to the people how there's this idea that people want to take the welfare from the poor, but free marketeers, libertarians, and conservatives actually want to take all welfare away. We want to take the millionaire cutout, which is welfare for the rich. We want to take that away. And for the guy at the bottom, we're not so much trying to take it away. We're trying to replace a handout with a job.
Well, that's right. And I think the easiest way to see what needs to be done is to say at the federal level, a lot of it needs to go, right? And so if you want to help the poor, I think the founders had it right. It first starts with individuals working, then the family, then the church and voluntary groups, then the local government, and then maybe the state government. But when we start to rely on the federal government for all these massive programs, all those programs are insolvent right now, right? Social Security's broke, Medicare's broke, they're all going broke. And so if we're going to put our faith in the federal government, our faith is going to get dashed. It's already dashed. We need to bring it down to the state level where it belongs and where we can truly know each other as individual people, right?
Now tell the audience, Dave, how many years in America that formula worked and that brought America from a collection of 13 colonies to the lone superpower on the planet. How many years did that work?
And I'll give you even a better timeline. No, I teach economic history stuff. Economic growth didn't begin till 1800. Right? And it almost coincides with the miracle of this nation. So everyone on this planet was poor. Everyone was basically a farmer for all of human history, except for the elites and landowners, and that was a small number. And so everybody made $500 a year. And then from 1800, economic growth takes off like the hockey stick. It's just upwards, straight up. And we're the richest country on the planet and the envy of the world until the last 20, 30 years we started to get complacent. We're getting a little sloppy. And if we don't keep our eyes open, the Indians and the Chinese, and to their credit, they're working hard. They're doing science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Their kids are supercharged. And our kids live in that global community now. It's not optional. You don't get to go back to another day where you just get to close your borders. We're competing in a global environment. And so the best thing we can do for our kids is to get them prepared for a great future in a free market society. And the good news is it's win-win. Right? After World War II, our arch enemies, the Japanese and the Germans, what did we do? We rebuilt them with a Marshall Plan.
Never before done in human history when a nation defeated a foe. Normally when you defeat a foe, you divide him up, you take his land. Never been, and people... And I don't understand, Dave, why on our side we accept these, we get defensive when they say we're mean, we're racist, we're evil. We're imperfect, but I think we're God's favorite country. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, just empirically, it appears that way, right? We live the longest, our children are healthy, we have modern health care that's unbelievable, we're blessed beyond comprehension.
Yes.
And so
now Obama's taking it over.
Or else we forget to say thank you and we lose it.
Yeah. And look, listen, folks, if you're joining us late, all right, you're watching a program. I'm Craig Johnson, also known on radio as Brother Craig the Hatchet Man. My guest on the radio is Dave Brett. I'm sorry, not on the radio. My guest on the line is Dave Brett. And many people do not know, folks, that there is a primary election coming up 7 weeks away, June 10th. And it's a Republican primary. Congressman Eric Cantor is up, and Dave Brett is the challenger. And David has his slingshot, and the Goliath has all his money. And so we're just going to find out who's going to win come June 10th. But you can certainly participate in this. And Dave, would you maybe take a minute to just explain to people, there may be some confusion about that this is a Republican primary. There is no Democrat primary this year. And what's the dynamic of who is able to vote in this primary election?
Yeah, it's an open primary, so anyone that agrees with our free market principles that I'm talking about tonight can vote on June 10. And I encourage I'm trying to build a broad coalition amongst Republicans. I want unity, but I want to bring new people on. I want to bring young people on. I want to bring free marketeers on. I want to bring people from the low end of the income spectrum all the way to the high end. And so we need to unify this country again, where we all see each other as brothers and sisters and quit all these other labels.
Amen.
And so that's what I'm about.
Yeah, and I'll say it because I'm always out here trying to convert Democrats. So I know Dave doesn't want to say that, but I'll say it. We want to, if you're a Democrat, we're talking and discussing principles that supersede a label, whether Democrat, Republican, Independent, these principles. And Dave, you have a divinity degree, and you stated that you like to merge ethics with economics. And so let's talk about a little bit, just take something as simple as the 10 Commandments. The first 4 of the 10 Commandments basically deal with man's relationship to God.
Right.
And then the 5th one is man's relationship to his parents, honor thy mother and thy father. But the other 5, that's man's relationship to his fellow man. Thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not bear false witness. And it seems, and I'm going to give you, and I'm going to see how you handle this, Dave. It's a favorite sport of mine. Bashing the Democrat brand. All right. And I'm careful to say I don't mean Ma and Pa Democrat, because all my family are Democrats with the exception of my personal family. And I love every last one of them. Even those that I don't get along with, I love you. If you're watching, right. I love you, okay?
Right.
But we're talking about the Democrat leadership, those that drive the agenda, those that are the purveyors of ideas, those that promote this hatred and this envy and this idea that every conservative is somehow a person that hates someone. I mean, this man, Dave Bratton, I mean, all my Tea Party friends, I've never met a conservative Christian libertarian. I've never met one, and I've met thousands of them. Never met one that had anything cross or ugly to say, and I believe that they don't even think that way, that this is just a Democrat talking point, because when it comes to discussing economic ideas, when it comes to discussing ideas how to govern the nation, ideas on how to promote good moral habits, that they cannot compete with us on ideas, so they resort to personal attacks. So, Dave, I want to give you an opportunity to give them a little polite payback, attack the Democrat brand, and how those last 5 aspects of the 10 Commandments, envy, the murder of the unborn, the theft, and really income redistribution is a form of theft. I've had Dr. Walter Williams, who comes on my program sometimes. He explains it beautifully that the 10 Commandments is not an exception if you have a 51% margin of vote in the Congress. Do not steal means just that. Do not steal. Okay? So take it away, Dave.
I'll make it even easier. I mean, if you want to attack the Democrat brand, I've got on my webpage, so you can see I'm not just making the stuff up off my head, right?
Okay.
It's on my campaign webpage, and the fundamental problem is the conservative tradition is we believe in conserving the best of the values, and you've just named the top 10 values that have lasted the test of time.
Yes.
And we have a coherent philosophy. It's called the Judeo-Christian tradition.
Yes.
And that's evolved over thousands of years. The left doesn't even have a philosophy or an ethical system they can name. And it's an embarrassment.
Humanism,
right? So I asked
atheism.
My kids in my classes today, I say, can you name me who is every age has always had their philosopher of note, going back from Plato and Jesus and St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas and Kant and John Stuart Mill and all these famous names. Every age has had a famous moral person and leader. I say, who do we have today? Who is our moral leader that sticks out and speaks for the nation as one voice under God or as a moral voice? And there's no answer. And so that's an embarrassment for our nation, right? When you no longer, 50 years ago, you still had some greats, right? You had Karl Barth and Reinhold Niebuhr and some great national theologians that still spoke. And today we're just left with talk show hosts and politicians.
Right.
And so our nation is in terrible decline right now. And at least the conservatives have a grand tradition, right? We got the grand swath of the Judeo-Christian tradition to work with.
Yes.
And if you ask the left, name me, what philosophy do you follow? There's no answer.
They like to attack our philosophy, and they're really attacking Christianity and Christians, and even the military is being purged of Christians. As great a man as General Boykin was disinvited from the National Prayer Breakfast. And you can just go on and on and on. I mean, even internationally, the Middle East is the birth of Christianity. Islam came centuries later, and they've just kicked Christians out. And in many of these nations here, just in the last few decades, the number of Christians are like 10, 15, 20, 30% of what it was just a few years ago.
Yeah, well, and I give Rotary talks across all the area on this. I got an ethics talk. If folks ever want to invite me to give a Rotary or ethics talk, I'm happy to come to churches or groups or whatever. But I always use all the original universities, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, all of them were founded as seminaries, right?
Yes.
They were seminaries.
Yes.
And so
not today.
There was this gentleman's handshake, And like at Princeton Seminary where I went, the seminary was kind of told, well, hey, you religious people go across the other side of the tracks and do your seminary thing, and over here we'll just keep doing ethics or whatever. And that was a gentleman's handshake. Well, the problem is the handshake was not kept, and the modern university doesn't teach ethics or require religion or do anything anymore.
Yes.
It's just they teach Buffy the Vampire Slayer or all these crazy courses you can come up to make fun of it.
Yes. Yes, and it's a crying shame, Dave. But look, isn't this, now let's get back to a little bit of the subject that I've been doing for these 6 weeks of, are we living in American-style communism? Now, you with your economics background, explain to the audience, please, some of these definitions so that people can get a sense of right directly from God himself, the liberty that our preamble is there to guarantee something that preceded government that God gave us, not something that the founding fathers said we're giving you. They were humble enough to recognize that they lacked the power to give you and me our rights. And they also lacked the power to curtail our rights, because once you start granting rights, then you can take them away. So share a little bit about some of these different types of limiting the power of the individual, increasing the power of the state. And they just all have these different names: communism, socialism, fascism, crony capitalism, and compare them to God's way of doing it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of funny you asked. I was lecturing on that this morning in class. I showed a famous free market economist. His name's Hayek, and he kind of follows along with, Milton Friedman or Adam Smith or any of the great free market minds. And the key is, it depends where you start in economics, just like it does with government, like you were saying. Do you start from the top down with the central planners? Communism starts at the top, right, with your Lenins and your Stalins and your dictators.
And if you don't give your farm up, we will kill you.
Yeah, the genius at the top supposedly is a genius, and he's going to control everything and tell everyone beneath him how to behave and what to buy and how to purchase and how much to purchase and what price to purchase at. Well, that person does not understand 300 million people. I'll just tell you that right now. And every time it's been tried, it's failed. On the other hand, the free market guys, Hayek and Adams, they start with the individual. And so you're free to pursue your own vision for your own life. And it's ironic, he was talking about true diversity, and we get, on the conservative side, we get accused of not favoring diversity. It's exactly the opposite.
Natural
we value
diversity.
Each individual and their unique identity, and we want them to express it as an individual because we believe they're a child of God.
Yes.
And there's only one of them. So we don't want a top-down society where some dictator at the top tells everyone to look the same and wear the same blue jeans and whatever. We want a bunch of unique individuals who choose to express themselves as individuals. And that's the way our country was founded, to protect that individual dignity that we all hold and to express it. And this country flourished by doing that.
Now, Dave,
but lately, you can see now whenever you talk about government policy, it's starting to have kind of that top-down flavor to it.
Yes.
Obamacare, what is that? That's government-run health care. Social Security, top-down, government-run. Medicare, top-down, government-run. Right? None of it's coming percolating up from people, from individuals.
Right.
And so in a nutshell, that's what's going wrong.
Yeah. Now, explain for people that may not know, and many of you out there will know this, but how the concept of the invisible hand, how each person pursuing his own self-interest,
right,
it magically benefits everyone. Right. And so what's been happening, Dave, is that the person that maybe went to the government school that was not taught this, they have this idea that because their outcome has not been great under free enterprise, we don't even really have free enterprise in this country. We have kind of semi-capitalism. Right. But under the amount of freedom and capitalism that we do have, which is not 100%, but people have been misled into thinking the reason that their outcome is poor is because capitalism, or i.e. free enterprise, is flawed. So explain to them.
I'll argue with the premise that their outcome is poor. Their outcome is not poor. I don't care who you are. And let me just tell, I always ask my students, this gives them a headache, right?
Yes.
So I say, look, when this country was founded, let's go back to 1776. What percent of people were farmers? Let's just say 90%.
Yes.
Right? Everybody was farmers, right? Today, what percent of people are farmers? 3%.
Mm-hmm.
So then you ask them the next question, and this is the one that hurts their brain. Is it? And remember, back then, those farmers only made $500 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Today, the average American makes $30,000 or $40,000 a year. So then I say the hard question is it good we fired 87% of the farmers? Right? And then they get a headache because they know that it's not good to fire people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But that's what the free market system did. But it transformed us into being able to, all those kids going to college, they wouldn't have been able to go to college. They would have been farmers. And there's nothing wrong with being a farmer. We got great farmers.
Creative destruction of capitalism.
Right. But that's the point. And so anybody that thinks they got it bad, they don't know what bad is. You go back to that period of time, half your babies died within the first year. You had no health care. You had worms in your stomach, and Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams will tell you all those stories. Don't go. Everybody acts like there was some perfect harmony back then.
Right.
And it was not.
Yes, yes.
And so the market has brought us automobiles and refrigerators and air conditioning, electricity, indoor plumbing. We take it for granted, and we should not. We should be thankful every day for that.
Yeah. Now let's attack this, because there's one of the 10th of those 10 commandments. Thou shalt not envy. And the Bible says don't covet, do not covet thy brother's wife. Don't covet thy brother's ass. What would be his SUV today, folks.
Right.
Do not covet his house. Do not covet anything that is thy brother's. And compare that, Dave, to how you just explained how we don't have poor outcomes, but we're constantly being told by Barack Obama, by Harry Reid, by Nancy Pelosi, by Michael Moore, by half the Hollywood idiots, that and all the Democrat politicians, we're constantly being told that there are these mean, evil, greedy, rich people who, from my mind, Dave, all they do is provide jobs and make the cost of goods go down. This cell phone would have been this big and $5,000, 25 years ago. And now it's as powerful as a computer, and it costs $200. And so go on the attack, please, Dave, against this envy and this division, and try to explain to people why the current establishment Republican Party does not do this, does not attack the Democrat brand, does not attack head on this divide and conquer, this inculcating envy, this war on women. Take that issue on, please.
Yeah, well, I'll just take it on the old-fashioned way. There's one major split between conservatives and liberals, and it has to do with our view of human nature. Conservatives know in the Judeo-Christian tradition that human nature is not all it's cracked up to be. Liberals want to hope that human nature can be perfected and we can all be angels. But their story doesn't work out. And so they have to come up with some sort of explanation to explain why everybody isn't angels. And so what do? They need a bad guy somewhere. And so Karl Marx came along, and he could not answer that question either. Where does human nature go bad? Why? What makes it go bad? And so what was his answer? And it's a false answer. His answer is capitalists are the bad guys, and the workers are the good guys.
So that they could steal the money that the capitalists earned. And, and this is another one of my pet peeves, Dave, is that there's this idea that the liberals are just mistaken. And I think that there's two types of liberals. One group I call, they're not liberal, they're illiberal, but I call them the neoliberals, the true believers who believe what you just described. And then there's the Democrati, or the George Soros types, the Warren Buffett types, the Tom Steyer types. Tom Steyer's a big multi-billionaire out in California who said he's going to donate $100 million this election cycle.
Yeah, I saw that. Yep.
Yes. And the dwarfs anything the Koch brothers are doing. And so I contend, Dave, and you analyze this for me, that there's two sets of these people, and that one set might be true believers that mistakenly believe these things are going to work, but there's another set that say that with their lips, but behind the scenes they're counting the money.
Yeah, and that's right. That's always the case, right? They're using the average person as a tool to make money off them, right?
I'll call them poverty pimps.
That's a tragedy for them.
Poverty pimps, pulpit pimps, and I've got a new one, Dave.
Yeah.
Eco pimps. Okay.
Yeah.
Al Gore, Mikhail Gorbachev. Okay. I mean, even the founder of Greenpeace has said that all this global warming stuff is a lie, and it's just there so that on the Chicago Mercantile and Exchange, they can sell carbon credits, which is like selling air, and they're going to get filthy rich to just move other people's money around.
Yeah, well, that's the tragedy, and I think the solution to this is the irony in our K-12 education system is they say they're doing critical thinking, right? But there's no critical thinking going on when it comes to the environmental movement or when it comes to teaching economics. There is a thing called economic science, and we've got a pretty good science going. But you wouldn't know any of it given what we teach the kids in K-12. And so parents need to get back on it and get their kids into those school systems and learning basic business, basic economics, basic history, basic religion, basic philosophy. And I think that will do a lot to get this country going back on the right track again. Right. Because that's what's really at fault is we are not critical thinking our way through these issues. Right? When someone's trying to sell you a bad product, and when they're trying to sell you a bad government program, it's the same thing. We need to be able to think our way through these things. And so parents out there listening, get your kids educated in every way, shape, and form you can, because that'll give them a better life, and it'll make a better nation for us.
Yeah. Now, last question I'm going to have for you tonight, Dave. We're going to go back to the Bible again, book of Isaiah, chapter 62. I have, I think verse 6, I have appointed watchmen on thy walls, O America, who will not hold their peace, night nor day. Those who make mention of the Lord, keep not silent. And what I want you to do, Dave, is take that and talk to individuals, not quote unquote watchmen on the wall. Like I'm a watchman on the wall, you're a watchman on the wall. There are many, there are literally millions of watchmen on the walls of America. But isn't there a case, Dave, to be made that individual family, every family should have at least one or two, the husband and the wife, should be the watchman and the watchwoman on the wall of that family, and not subcontract out the responsibility to the school teacher to be the watchman on the wall against ignorance, to the preacher to be the watchman on the wall against immorality, or to the politician to be the watchman on the wall against wasteful government. If there was a nation of watchmen, address that issue, Dave, because when you said ensure that you have a good education, in a lot of people's minds, that means just, send them off to the public school. But that's not been working. So how do we
do it? And that, in my Rotary talk, that's what I go over, right? Why isn't it working? Because for the first 13 years of your education, of your child's education, they are not given any religion, they're not taught any ethical system of thought, and they're taught no philosophy. Well, philosophy used to be the queen of the sciences. Everything fell below philosophy. So now your kid doesn't learn any religion, any ethics, no philosophy, and they're trying to get rid of American history step by step as well, too. And so, you're absolutely right on the watchman. And I'd go even beyond that, right? We're called not only to watch out for our kids and our family, but what we're talking about tonight, too, is politics. Everyone is called to be a watchman for their society as well. And if anyone doesn't step up to the plate and vote and take part in the political process, they're failing a little bit there, too.
Yes, yeah, and that's a big one. Vote, and you know, some folks don't like to mix politics and religion. I do it. I mix the two every chance I get. Okay, so anyone doesn't like it, change the channel. I'm sorry.
Right. No, well, you look at the founders. I mean, they combined them. I mean, it wasn't a unity. It wasn't the same thing.
Yes.
But they all knew you had to have strong moral fiber for this republic to last, and we're fading there.
They even said, Dave, that our form of government is only suited to a moral and religious people.
Right.
I found it interesting that they chose that wording, moral. You know, the modern humanists would just say, well, I'll grant you moral maybe, but they would not grant you religious. The founders said both.
Yeah.
Because religious indicates the teaching, the continuation.
Yeah, well, and I don't want to go too much into the ethics thing because I'm not sure if you're all interested in that. But there is no such thing as morality anymore, right?
Yeah.
There is no moral system per se. It's got to be Buddhist morality or Christian morality or some version of morality. That's why religion is crucial, right? And so there is no such thing as just a morality. It's some version of morality, and you have to choose because they differ. And that critical thinking is missing because the teachers are scared to get into conversations about those sensitive issues. But there's no way around it.
First Amendment, you know, before people think the decline of the country began when God got kicked out of the school system out of a Baltimore case in 1962. As a matter of fact, I interviewed he was a 10-year-old boy at the time, William Murray. His mother, Madeline O'Hare Murray, filed this lawsuit on his behalf. They were a family of atheists. He's now a Christian evangelist, Mr. Murray, who wrote a book about his experiences. But prior to that, Dave, you had to first kick God out of the Constitution. And they did that by combining the first two clauses of the First Amendment, freedom of religion, freedom with freedom from religion, and gave it the color of the negative. So you went from 6 clauses in the First Amendment down to 5, and the one that they kicked out was the free exercise clause. And so we've been on a downward spiral since then.
Yep. No, that is the crux of the issue we're facing today. We've been running a long time on low fuel, and so it's time for a little awakening again. Okay.
Well, listen, Dave, you've been very generous with your time. Please, wrap it up with your website. Please, folks, if you can, send some money or volunteer. And it'd be a great experience for you out there to have your teenage children. When both my children were teenagers, I always had them out somewhere volunteering and learning. Yes. Go ahead,
bring them by
Dave.
the office and just go to our website. It's DaveBrattForCongress.com. Bratt is just B-R-A-T. DaveBrattForCongress.com. Our address is there for the office. Email us, call us. We'll get your kids in there, give them an exciting day at the office, show them a little work, and if they want to stay with us and help out, that's great. But any financial contributions you can make are very appreciated. We need that because the Eric Cantor machine has millions to work with, and we're just going grassroots to the people. And thanks to Craig and leaders like that are helping us get the word out. Thank you very much, Craig.
Oh, thank you, Dave. God bless you, and keep working hard and keep doing the Lord's work, my friend.
God bless you, Craig. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You too. All right. Well, all right, folks. That was Dave Bratt running for Congress against our current sitting congressman in the 7th District, Eric Cantor. And so that's coming up, and we're going to go ahead and put the phone number up now. And anyone that would like to participate, 915-5202, 915-5202 is the number. And we have a caller, and I want to say, caller, thank you so much for participating in this evening's program. Your question or comment, please.
A little bit of both.
Okay.
And I've listened to Dave was on for a minute, so I had to wait till I chance to get through. The last stuff I wanted to say kind of left me a little bit, but you were saying mix politics with religion, which a lot of people don't.
But I do. Myself. Well, I believe in freedom. They're free to do that, but I do. But what's your question or point?
My question is, why do not only just preachers, but in our society, to me, and I ask a question, basically the United States turned our back on God. So to me, in God we trust, they should just go ahead and just take it off the money. That's just me. I'm just one person.
That's a very astute observation, and many people have been making that observation for years and years and years. And I mean, it's as old as humanity itself. I mean, even right there in the Garden of Eden, you had Adam and you had Eve, and a hot minute hadn't gone by before you had the serpent in there whispering to Eve, and silent Adam stood right there, didn't open his mouth. And so we have a whole lot of silent Adams out here. Okay, Eve was given to Adam as his ezer kenegdo. And ezer kenegdo is someone that is like God is with you. Your woman is like God, the feminine side of God's personality. The man is the masculine side, and with you is with you in person and with you in spirit. And so right there was the beginning, and the evil was there to whisper into their hearts and to convince them to go astray. And nothing has changed from that day to this. And so it just takes different forms, and we get modern communications. And so, there's all types of serpent-like whispering, as Dave and I were discussing this angle of envy, how whether it's Barack Obama or whether it's just Democrats in general, whether it's trade unions, they're going to lower income people and they're saying the reason you're poor, the reason now, is that the man who has more than you has his foot on your neck. And the truth of the matter is that only government has the power to put their foot on your neck. The business community existence is to convince you to willingly engage in commerce. And so if you're poor, you have less money to engage in commerce. So there's no way they can win. Absolutely no way. And so we're up against the end of the program, but your thoughts on that, caller?
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm going to say this because I know you ain't got much time, but my thought is about the school system, Richmond school system. I think they need to step it up. They're always going to get somebody outside of Virginia to
school choice, my friend. Yeah. I'm the school choice advocate, and I'm gonna say this then we're gonna have to wrap it up. But I'll just answer this. But thank you for the call, sir. And that's one of the key things. And all the communists have their different quotes accredited to, whether it's Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, whether it's Mao. One of the things they all agree on, they say, give me your young, and in one generation, I'll rule your country. And so this is where they go, whether it's the homosexual lobby wanting to go after the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, whether it's these communist front groups that want to infiltrate education. Whatever the case may be, when the Fabian socialists first came over here in the 30s from Germany, they were mainly going into the universities, and then they trained future teachers, future psychiatrists, future professionals in all the communications arts, and it just filtered down until now. Today, you have a huge, giant apparatus. They have total control of all the levers of the culture. They have education. They have Hollywood. They have journalism. They have the pulpit. And so this is the pernicious way that communism just takes over a society. And American style communism, remember, it's not like Soviet style communism. They're trying to convince you, and it's a twofold way. One, they dumb you down with a false education. And the second way is they convince you to sell your American birthright in the same way that Esau sold his birthright to his brother for a bowl of beans. And he said, oh, I'm hungry, I'm going to starve to death, feed me. Okay, give me your birthright, I'll feed you. And so this is what's going on today with the Obama scam healthcare fiasco, with the welfare, the income redistribution. They're saying to you, if you were to just give up your American birthright to be a free individual, I'll take care of you. And so that's just the way American style, one of the pernicious ways in which American style communism works. And so what I want to say is, hey, it's been fantastic. We're up against the end of the program. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank our fantastic engineers in there on the other side of the window that have made this program possible. We want to thank the Comcast people that made this possible. I want to thank Dave Bratt, and I want to thank the callers and you out there. And we invite you to check us out at thefirsamendmentinc.com. I invite you to Google Brother Craig the Hatchet Man. You can pull all these things up, and we'll have these programs posted so that they can be replayed and you can share them with your friends. And so we're going to see you next Wednesday at 5 to 6 p.m. at 990 AM WLEE. And Richmond, we're going to see you right here on Comcast again for segment 5 next